What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I want to do a review or reaction, my take on a documentary or a docuseries that's on Netflix called Black Beauty Effect. When I saw it probably about a month ago, I was sitting down on the couch with my wife and we were kind of scrolling as we do, trying to find something to watch on Netflix. And of course, those bold words, Black Beauty and Effect. And I was like, whoa, what's this? So I clicked on it and I saw this 3-part docuseries that was on the topic of the effect on really popular culture, certainly American culture, of Black beauty. And of course, I mean, as a matter of fact, my wife looked at me and she was like, we about to watch this whole thing. I'm like, oh, we about to binge watch this all the way through. And man, when I turned it on, the first thing that I saw was a bunch of faces that I recognized. I recognized Jackie Aina. I recognized Ursula Stephen. I recognized Sam Fine. I recognized Andrea Lewis from her days on Degrassi and her early days when she was on YouTube. Just a bunch of different people from the makeup space, from content creation. I think Naptu85, Whitney was on there, Kim Kimball, a ton of people. So I just sat back, got my popcorn ready and was really pleasantly surprised. Let me stop right now. Before I go any further, spoiler alert, if you have not seen this docuseries, stop right now. Stop right now. Don't go any further because I'm going to spoil it because I really want to give all of my feelings. I've never done this. So for people that review movies and docuseries, as much as I'm a cinema guy and a documentary guy, I've never really done this. So if this is bad etiquette because I'm telling all of the damn jewels and gems, my sorry. So yeah, click out right now if you want to watch it for yourself, and then come back and listen to my commentary if it means anything. So I'll give you a minute. All right, we're back. So when I actually sat down and saw the 3 different topics that they covered, one was makeup, the other, so the Black beauty effect of Black makeup, the effect of Black beauty through skincare, and then the last one was hair, right? And it was just interesting that the last one was hair. So I was itching to get to the last one, but I watched them in succession. And, I've seen some other documentaries on Netflix. They've had some commitments. They had a wonderful documentary on women in hip hop. I'm just talking about Black culture. But there's also a documentary on, or really a movie on the life of Madam C.J. Walker. So Netflix has really, and other, I would imagine platforms too, like HBO had Not So Pretty. I think that was about a year ago, when they talked about the toxicity of beauty products, skincare, hair care, nails, I think makeup back then. And that was very controversial, seemingly. It was a very good one. This one I thought was good for me. I don't know if it was good for other people because it was really like a going back in time for me. And it's one of the, I'm one of those people who does not like to lead with the amount of years that you've been in the industry. But I don't know, man, something as of late has been happening to really remind me and to bring back to my remembrance what I accomplished early in my career, my early 20s, the early 2000s, the mid 2000s, even before I even opened up my salon in 2006. It's just been a lot of things that's been happening. People have been coming in my life, situations have been happening, little things have been, and this is one example of that because this was like a walk down memory lane of seemingly the effects of, now skincare, I'll be honest, even my talking about skincare, I have a maybe different relationship, but makeup, I'm a former makeup artist, right? And certainly hair care, I still work in the hair care space as an educator and I'm a long time behind the chair. So when you turn it on, I'm watching it and it's beautifully shot, to say, right? So just these beautiful different images of Black women. It's primarily targeted, it's about Black beauty. So it's talking about Black women. There are some men, Sir John, Chucky, Amos, Sam Fine. There are some men in the documentary. I think one of the EPs was a man. I think the executive producer or the concept was created by Andrea Lewis, who, a longtime celebrity who's been on sets with makeup and hair. So I understood the connection, and I love the way they combine seemingly professionals, consumer, editorial, or kind of like the set styling in magazines, and creative directors like Kalana Barfield and Mickey Taylor and what was happening in the salon, are pros in makeup, pros in skincare, and pros in hair care. So it was this beautiful combination. And that's where I live, right? So, one of the things that even drew me to the documentary was I feel like I'm very much a hybrid in that I have worked with consumer brands. I am a YouTuber and have been for over a decade, but I am also a long time 2-decade professional. I work. So I don't like that kind of dividing line between, influencer, content creator, YouTuber, consumer, and then the pro world. I've challenged that. My whole career has been a contradictory kind of existence in that world. So this actually clashing them together, I actually enjoyed it because I was familiar with both sides. So, and then these beautiful images of Black women and they telling their story through their voice is important, because although I am a boy in the beauty game, I have never lost sight that I'm a visitor on some level. You know what I mean? Now, I don't mean that in the literal sense. I have paid my dues as a professional, serving women seemingly for 20 years as a professional. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that like I've been in the game 20 years, but I've had 20 years of understanding the importance of serving women as a customer. And seemingly my staff has been primarily women, people that has taught me, about this game, people I've worked with, be it away or around the salon, has been women. You may be, for the most part, my audience online is predominantly women, 99%. I think that's what 95, what Instagram tells me, and YouTube. So I've always been a fan of not enough light is shined on Black women in our industry and Black people, period. So to have this beautiful documentary, I do hope that everything was done above board with Netflix. I'm doing a lot of talking, guys, that it was, people were paid handsomely and taken care of. Because we know about IP and all these things, and we're inside of the strike and all those things. So I hope everybody was compensated, because there was a lot of people that was involved. So the last episode was about hair, or the Black beauty effect of hair. So, I got comfortable in my seat. And I remember a time, I got to be honest, that, I used to have the mentality when I would see anything about beauty or hair, if it was a movie, or it was, I know anytime my wife is Greek, and she's not gonna like me talking about her, but anytime there is any type of depiction of Greek life, online, she always kind of look at it and like, all right, they better get it right, And anybody that has a subculture, from the band or restaurants or what it's like to be in sports or, whatever, people are like, well, I hope they show how it really is versus some fictitious account. And this was a documentary, so I don't feel that way today. I think a lot more of the lines, in my opinion, are blurred between the consumer and online influencer, be it TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, as well as what's happening in the professional level. I'm no longer quote unquote behind the chair, but I know what's happening there. I talk to probably more hairdressers than most people have ever talked to because of what I do for a living. So I'm constantly engulfed in what's happening in our suites and our salons. So to hear them kind of talk about the Black beauty effect of hair, much of it I knew and a lot I did not consider. So they started off just using that term Black girl magic, which I think is just a wonderful term. And it's so true, because when you think about hair in particular, the diversity of coily, curly, wavy, texture, kinky, which is a good word, a wonderful word, braids, curls, twists, blowout, ponytail, updo. I just think about the things that I did in the salon. My goodness, things that are uniquely Black girl, finger waves of Missy, or, the beachy, messy, kind of textured hair of Beyonce, or the short flippity do of Halle and Nia, or the Brandy braids. I could go on and on, or the Lauryn Hill locks, the lace front, the bust down, It's just, there's so much of us that is uniquely us that is in no other space. It's one of the reasons why there's such a divide, in my opinion, and like an absence. I'm just convinced that they kind of like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're going to stick over here with straight. And somebody say, Ray, you sound like you isolating. I'm not. I'm just, this is me talking about a documentary and docuseries. So I gotta give you my honest opinion. I just think that in a world of straight and blonde and colors and cuts pretty much one way, that the versatility that happens in a salon that is traditionally serviced black women, it's almost the switching up and the magic of how the hair can transform. It doesn't get enough credit. And we really don't, sometimes we don't really think about the freaking magic that's happening in salons or in bathrooms or in homes or suites or what have you, whether people are doing their hair by themselves or inside of us. It's just incredible what we're able to do. Extensions and weaving and the natural hair explosion and texture and short and what we can do with color. It's just so black girl magic, although of course it matters. Of course it's apropos in skincare and certainly makeup. I do think that it almost is on a different pedestal when it comes to what black women are able to do with their hair. And again, I'm a hair guy, so I've been a hairstylist since I was 19 years old. So I've seen all of these, transitions and shifts and all of these different celebrations. I talk about that inside of my, that video I referred to earlier on beauty. Check it out. I think you'll enjoy it if you're enjoying this. So it started same way, in Africa, right? So much of style, guys, fashion, cooking, art, agriculture, architecture, started in the motherland. Bare minimum started in like the Middle East or Asia, although so much credit is given to Europe or even Western society where we live at in America. And that's not the origin of much. If it is an origin in Western society, it's Native American, be it settlers or colonizers, you dig? But they talked about what was happening with the braiding, before the slave trade in Western Africa, and how that came over. And, again, there was this kind of, I need to perpetuate white beauty, straight hair, light eyes. So cover your hair was a command and demand of people that were on plantations. Like, I don't even want to see it. I don't want to see that. Although we hear about all of this lust for the black woman back then, unfortunately, and this, and we still see it today, this kind of fawning over the black figure and the black skin and the black features. So even then, the hair, it was almost like this misdirected adoration, really. Like they really were in awe. But I had to flip it and depress or suppress, the importance and the word value of texture and kink, coil, curl, what we were able to do with our hair. And then, that eventually went on and they moved to like antebellum. And then eventually, turn of the century, and they started talking about people like Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker. And again, I think Netflix does a good job of their docuseries that starring Octavia Spencer that really did a good job. And again, it's almost like that went unnoticed. It's like that was not talked about in the beauty industry as a whole, not amongst the pros. Certainly not amongst certain pages or outlets or companies, when there was an entire documentary of noted the first American woman beauty millionaire. So much of what we see in popular beauty culture is of European origin. Sassoon, Toni and Guy, all those things are European, you know what I mean? Versus what C.J. Walker was doing, Madam C.J. Walker was doing, Annie Malone was doing, the Poirot Institute, that was here. That was in the United States, in St. Louis, Missouri, and those kind of places. That should be taught in every school. That should be taught in every book. It should have been celebrated, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And that's what this documentary was about, is like this kind of absence of the acknowledgement of black beauty, unless it was co-opted, unless it was, stolen, unless it was, renamed into something. Boxer braids is not a thing. It's cornrows. Yeah, it's cornrows. Them same cornrows that everybody been wearing since, they started there. And then they started talking about how that eventually, the 20s, and we know the 20s is like that Harlem Renaissance period, the New Negro movement, the literary explosion and art explosion that happened in the roaring 20s. Think Harlem Nights, that era, Black Wall Street and Tulsa. And eventually you get to like the 40s and the 50s, and now we're pressing, hot combing, and then you start to see the kind of popularizing of the relaxer, and chemically straightening the hair. And again, not so much in the skincare episode, but certainly in the makeup episode, and definitely in the hair episode, I was kind of waiting for when I came in, right? My earliest memories. This has been my career. It is my career, right? So 1960s, of course, I'm not even born yet, but I am a historian, right? And I hear a lot of my mother talk. My mother had 8 sisters, right? So I'm listening to them and how my mom would talk about, plaiting her hair and pressing her hair in certain times of the year. Even hearing my mother-in-law talk about this, who grew up in the 60s. And then how at the end of the 60s, that press or the concholine and the relaxer, again, Black beauty effect, and how, again, all of that, so much of the stealing of Black culture, quite frankly, is so wild, because so often folk are trying to create out of lack. So it's kind of like, damn, I didn't have much. I made a pie out of a sweet potato. Damn, you know what I'm saying? I made a casserole out of something corn. Damn, so to see it kind of like, taken and then somebody taking and making a luxury, is like, well, you gave me you get my point. So to hear certain things, and then, when I think about the innovation that happened in hair, that again, go back and watch the previous episode. But I've been on this high horse and pedestal for years. I just think that it's just so obvious that we drive culture, we drive artistry and fashion and trend. Still evident today on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. So this documentary was really good for that. And it was unapologetic. It wasn't saying it in a negative way. It was just stating facts. So eventually we get into the late 60s. So now we're talking about the Afro and the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Power Movement, Angela Davis, Stokely Carmichael, you know what I mean? And that era that I studied, I wasn't born yet, but I would hear my father and my mother talk about it. I hear my aunts and uncles talk about it, right? About this era of like pride. Like, we're not trying to assimilate to European culture. We're not trying to look a certain way, lighter, brighter, streakers, straighter hair. We wearing black. You dig what I'm saying? We putting on turtlenecks, and we taking maybe the makeup down to a minimum. We celebrating our skin, and we're going to celebrate our natural texture of hair. And so that was beautiful to see that there were so many innovators around that time, be it Angela Davis or Nina Simone, Maya Angelou, or Cicely Tyson. These are kind of folk that were around that time that were looked to be gorgeous, and they understood, and they were very bold in their hair choices, and it was very Black. They were Black girl magic in that time, still are, quite frankly. So then that eventually went into like the disco era of the 70s. And now we got the Donna Summers and the Pointer Sisters and the Motown era, and the back of the 60s, you got the Diana Rosses. You're thinking about this kind of this big coiffs, and the movie Dreamgirls, and these eras of just, the Diane Carrolls and the Dorothy Dandridges, and this era, well, Dorothy Dandridge a little bit earlier. But just thinking about that whole era of like the 70s. So we had like the fros of the 60s, like this disco kind of free Shaka Khan era of the 70s. And then you had the 80s, right? Another way to, the Jerry curl and like the curl and texture and shaved sides, and the hip hop era exploding in the end of the 70s, and the Salt and Peppers of the world, and the MC Lights of the world, and the Latifahs of the world, and you saw all of this kind of more expression and these unique looks that were, exclusively Black women and Black girl magic. And by this point, I'm all into the documentary because, again, being in the industry this long, man, I've studied those periods and celebrate those periods. I've showcased them for hair shows and visuals and imagery. I'm very inspired by those to this day. I'm still talking about people that are still style mavens to this day. Then eventually the 90s, which I didn't quote unquote start doing hair to 2000, but I was very conscious of the 90s era because I was cutting hair in the middle of the 90s. I graduated in 1995. And I started cutting hair in a barbershop full time in 1996. So I was around hairdressers that early. And what I would just hear about is this kind of product neglect. Like innovation with the fro and trying to figure things out with the press and the concholine and the relaxer, and then, you know, horror stories with that. And I remember the Rio controversy that, you know, my mom would talk about, and my mom stopping the Jerry curl and seeing her put the relaxer on her hair and the neutralizer shampoo and that smell, or going to the salon with her as a little kid and having girl cousins and 8 aunts, and that whole, from a little boy's perspective, what that was all about in like the 80s. And then in the 90s, you know, I would see girls that was going through their own thing in high school and middle school. And, you know, my college years would have been, you know, the mid 90s, late 90s. And now I'm in the shop. So I'm around hairdressers at events. And now they went to this era, and that's when they brought in like Kim Kimball and Ursula Stephen, and man, these people that, I mean, I'm thinking about people like in LA, like Tracy Johnson, or Nicole Mangrum, I think was in Chicago, Carol Morrow in Atlanta. I start to get hip to the superstars of that time, which were salon hairdressers that were helping women that did not have the consumer respect. The companies weren't creating products in enough speed and innovation for Black women, and that the people that knew that was hip was the hairdresser, right? Was the hairstylist. They're true in barbering too, but more in hairstyling because it required product. There wasn't, maybe up until late, a lot of product with barbering. There's a lot of product and tools, heating tools, cutting tools, styling tools when it comes to women that, you know, you need to be a pro in order to take care of. And I just remember those people just being these, you know, to this day, staples. I mean, to this day, Ursula Stevens' name, or Kim Kimball's name, or definitely in Atlanta, Carol Morrow. There's almost like a tree, or like almost like coaches have a tree. You know what I mean? I mean, I have a tree of myself, seemingly. There were people that worked in my salon and were influenced by me in my salon. Certainly now as an educator, there are folk that I'm sure I'm influencing. They don't owe me anything to give me credit every time they open their mouth, but I know that I've had a imprint, right? So I knew of even the legacy of these people in DC. Shout out to Idris Nichols. I never got a chance to meet her, but I was so, you know, moved by what she was doing at her salon in New York City. I mean, so many people that I was studying, and there's a lot of men too, but I'm trying to specifically talk about the women that I knew that were just kicking ass all over the country. And that's when I came in. So in the early 2000s, I entered the game. So now the early 2000s, we see, you know, Black actresses, Black models, Black singers. Late 90s, early 2000s, we started to see the rise of the celebrity stylist. And again, you know, from the Missy to the Mary J. Blige to the Little Kim to the Foxy Brown to the Ashanti to the Lauryn Hill to the Erykah Badu to the Beyonce, of course, and Rihanna, these people that just drove style and how they were seemingly bringing people along with them. I mean, even some people that I know, being this close to Atlanta, so they brought all of that in, and then eventually they landed in the mid 2000s with the explosion of YouTube. And that's where we are right now. And right about 2009 is when I jumped on. And you hear me talk about it in my previous video. And to me, that just changed the game again. And if you're watching this, and if you've watched this far into the video, and if you've ever watched my content, if I could just reach one person to maybe reconsider that line in the sand and not embracing what's happening online, because it's not changing. Right. And what I saw in this documentary, I could go on, but what I saw was this wonderful kind of conversation that it's all Black beauty effect. It's all relevant. It's not like these pockets for real. And I'm still speaking like a visitor, in my opinion. I'm not a woman. I served women. I hired women. I worked for women, but I'm not a woman. So, but primarily 99% of the people that are in my community are. And I know that there's very strong feelings about, I mean, male and female hairdressers, but of course, predominantly women, it's strong feelings about not being on YouTube or not creating content, or I'm a professional, or I'm licensed and that's not me and that's for them. I've been to shows that were, you know, primarily consumer shows that didn't have as many beauty professionals. And I remember going back to my community and say, hey guys, this is a great show. This is a good one too, that we've gone to for years, but here's a new show that's happening that may not look like your traditional show. It's not the same people. I remember even going to a consumer show, a quote unquote professional show, and say, when are you guys going to drop the requirement to have your license? And I know that's controversial. I know. But I think at this point, I think everybody needs to be at the show. Consumers, influencers, YouTubers, professionals, brands, tool makers, product makers. Everybody needs to be talking together. I'll be honest, it's not as popular anymore, but I think that was one of the beauties of Clubhouse. A lot of good things happened out of that social media platform, but the fact that there were rooms, I think for the first time, when all of those different cliques were hanging out together, talking, it shocked the shit out of people, because people were kind of like, that's how you think? That's what's happening there? And some people, I think, were enriched and changed and helped and enlightened during that time. Others kept their stance so firm, and there was a lot of arguments and a lot of back and forth, because you are you and I'm me. You're you, I'm me, and we're not the same. And if it interests you, I think you might want to watch this documentary, because I think it's one of the few examples in culture now, in the space, that actually celebrates everybody and kind of puts everybody on the same crusade and mission to celebrate Black beauty. And I know that's a part of my mission here, as somebody that started YouTube simultaneously while I was behind the chair. I literally have been in conversations when people are talking about YouTubers and professionals, and I'm in the room. And I'm both. And I've been both since 2009. Well, Ray, don't you feel like that? I actually don't. Ray, don't you feel about them like this? I don't. I'm both. I'm both. So, and now as an educator, I'm even more enlightened and heightened, because I'm free to really float on both ways. One of the reasons why I'm even doing this challenge this month of the 30 days is because I want to really get back, man, to where I was in YouTube space. Shout out to all my people on Instagram. I love you guys, but IG is almost exclusively, I was exclusively in the just the pro sector, meaning just people behind the chair. But I'm there. I have a professional online education subscription for pro hairdressers, but there's cosmetology students in there. There are people that are transitioning from corporate that are members of that community. I have a Facebook group that's for suite owners. So I'm definitely dedicated, 1,600 people that's in that group, to professionals that are operating in suites. But I'm a fan of Black beauty as a whole. I'm a fan of Black as a whole. So I love what we can do on YouTube, and I love opportunities for a documentary like this that celebrated people like Jackie Ina, people like Naptu85, you know what I mean? They mentioned people like Taryn Guy, all of these people that I was just, man, I'm just sitting there like, damn, this is me. I did some of the books that they were showing. I'm like, I had that book. I had Sam Fine's Fine Beauty. I had the book. So I don't know if you got to be my age to enjoy this documentary, but it was well done. I think, again, Andrea Lewis was the EP, and some other people. Well done, Andrea, if you ever see this. Mickey Taylor was such an instrumental, almost narrative voice throughout the whole thing. Someone that, there is no rhythm hair studio without Essence magazine. Like, Essence was such a blueprint of what I wanted my salon to be. I had stacks and stacks and stacks of Essence magazine. I'm from New Orleans. I would go to Essence Fest every other year. And, I remember even books like Suede magazine. Y'all remember Suede magazine? I don't know if y'all remember that. That was a good Honey magazine that were really kind of like just Essence before a younger generation. Of course, I liked Vibe too and Vogue. But hearing, of course, the editor-in-chief, if not mistaken, Mickey Taylor, I just would see her face in every episode. She was all through the documentary looking fabulous. Or then being inspired by people like Kalana Barfield, who I think is like the new Mickey Taylor. Again, I'm not trying to name drop. I'm just saying, if any of those people ever see this, just know that there are professionals and people that are maybe even not women. I'm a dude that, gonna watch the football scores. But I'm also a, longtime beauty professional and somebody that is a historian and studied all of those things. I'm a hair nerd, a beauty nerd, a glam nerd. And I just really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and it could have went on. I mean, you could have did 3 hours just on hair. So I hope that whoever is responsible for that documentary does more things. I don't know if it's a film or more documentaries or tour with that or whatever, because it's a conversation that I would love to have. And I say it again, I didn't hear nobody talk about it. I was actually asking people, I was sending it out like, guys, did y'all see this? I can't be the only one on Netflix that saw Black Beauty Effect and not get excited, but it wasn't really talked about. But I'm convinced it has a lot to do with it didn't feel like it was a professional doc. Like, professional for us is supposed to look a certain way. And I'm a professional, and I'm here to challenge that thinking. That was a beautiful doc that everybody should see, both sides. And I think we can learn from both sides, and I'm an example of that. So, guys, I hope that was, I don't know, I just was rambling. I had a few notes, but that's my take on it. Check it out. It's on Netflix. We got Netflix. Go watch it. And it's a good watch. And it's something I've already watched about 2 or 3 times. So every time I see something different, because they had so many layers to the cake in the documentary. Thank you for checking it out, guys. Of course, subscribe to the channel if you value what is being said here. Thank you for everybody that has joined the tribe membership. Checked out my links that's inside this description, guys, and gotten connected to our communities. All of my newer subscribers on YouTube who've joined my Sweet Dreams community, welcome. Some of you guys are already booking coaching calls, so I'm excited, man, to be back on YouTube. And we're just about third way through this challenge, and I'm excited. It's really hard to think about uploading a video every single day, but I'm committed to put 30 on the books before the end of November. See you guys next video.